You know, there's a version of trucking that people see every single day, and then there's the version that actually exists. The one where you're responsible for 80,000 pounds moving down the road, where one bad decision from you or somebody else can change everything. And here's the truth. Most people don't think about safety until something goes wrong. But the best drivers, the best companies, the ones that last, they think about it before anything ever happens. Today, we're sitting down with the guy who spent nearly 30 years making sure people get that part right. Not just enforcing the rules, not just checking boxes, but figuring out how to protect drivers, protect companies, and protect the public before things go sideways. This is one of those conversations that might not be super flashy, but if you actually listen to it, it might be one of the most important episodes we've ever had. Let's get to it.
You are listening to Always Pneumatic, Never Static, the totally pressurized podcast brought to you by Bulk Transit, where we keep the lines clear, the tanks empty, and the conversation anything but dry. Whether you're running powder, pellets, or anything in between, pull up a seat, crack the windows, and let's hit it.
Bulk and Spur, how's it going out there? Welcome into Always Pneumatic, Never Static. We've got an awesome episode planned for you today, and I can't wait to get to it. So let's get some homework done right off the top. How can I forget to tell you? My name's Marcus, but you're starting to learn that. You don't need to hear me say my own name anymore. 10 episodes in here? But I'll say it just in case, because that's part of the homework. I'm the host here. I'm the guy that's going to walk you through today's episode. If you haven't ever listened before, this is a real good one to start with. But I do want to advise you a little bit on this. We have a website, podcast.bulktransit.com is where you want to go to find all of the episodes that we've done. And later on in this episode, you will hear our guest today say, I'm showing drivers this episode, not this one that we're doing. He will tell you which episode he shows drivers when he's talking to them in some meet and greets. We'll also get to that a little bit later too. So the point is, go to the website, bookmark it. That way you don't got to go to Spotify. You don't have to depend on Apple to tell you. We put out a new episode at 5 a.m. local time every single week. And it's right there on the website for you. So you don't have to worry about, again, Spotify. Like sometimes I know there's a new episode out, and where is it? I don't know. I have to look for it. I don't want to do that. Boom. Bookmark the website, podcast.bulktransit.com. There on that website, you can find out everything about every episode that we've done, who's joined us. The quizzes are up there. If you want to test your mettle a little bit and see what you took away from the episode, you can do that. If we have photo galleries to share up there, if we ever get drivers to send in pictures, we'll be putting them up there as well. There's also a link that you can click on that website where you can come directly into my realm. You can send me a message that'll hit me right in the pocket. If there's anything that you want to talk about on this podcast, I am open for suggestion. You drivers out there that are listening right now are a big reason why we're doing this. You're a big part of what we're doing here, and I want to hear from you. If you got something that you know a bunch of drivers from Bulk and Spur are going to want to hear about, send me an email by going over to podcast.bulktransit.com. Maybe you don't have something that you want to talk about specifically. You just want to join in on the fun and be part of the podcast. That's fine too. I will find a spot for you, but you got to let me know that you're interested. So reach out to me. Head on over to the website, podcast.bulktransit.com. And listen, sometimes for me, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. If you've emailed me already and I haven't gotten back to you, hit me again. I get a lot of them every single day, but I want to make sure and involve everybody that wants to be involved on this podcast. So podcast.bulktransit.com. That's going to wrap up the homework portion of today. And I'm glad too, because look, homework was not my strong suit in school, okay? The fact that I get to our homework right off the top every single day that we have an episode here on Always Pneumatic, Never Static should just tell you that I have a sticky note right underneath my camera that says, homework. I got to tell you guys about the website. We got to get people heading over there. Trust me, a lot of our traffic that we get, in fact, most of the traffic that we'll get from this podcast will actually come from that website. That's where drivers like to go. You guys already are familiar with it. You've been on the website before. It's just an extension of that. So again, bookmark it, and we put the brakes on homework for today. So what is today's episode about? Well, in a word, I could just say safety. I feel like that does a massive disservice to today's episode. I feel like that really kind of buries the lead here a little bit. Today, we're talking about how safety has evolved from getting past the audit to prevent the lawsuit before it ever happens. How's that? That's a pretty good one. There's a story in here today about a driver who, without technology, probably loses his job, maybe more. But we will talk about safety tech a little bit in today's episode, and I think that anecdote is a real heavy one for those of you out there driving right now. We get into some of why drivers might push back on a little bit of tech and what exactly we're trying to do by employing that tech. We also talk about something most drivers don't think about in today's episode. Who's actually clearing you for your medical card? And is that legit? Well, if you work at Bulk and Spur, it is. I can tell you that much. And of course, one thing that our guest today will tell me that really stuck with me in this interview is that safety isn't just safety anymore. It's risk management, okay? There's a big part of it there. How do we prevent accidents before they happen? And that and much, much more is what we're going to get into on today's episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static, because I am joined here in just a few minutes, right around the corner, by Director of Safety, Tim Hamilton. I will tell you right now, I could not wait to get Tim on the air because when I spent 3 days out at one of the terminals there getting to know everybody, Tim came and sat down with us, and he gave us more than an hour of his time. He was so gracious with his time. And a lot of times when you sit down in these meeting rooms with people, it's hard to tell if they're sitting there because they kind of feel obligated to. They feel like their position is important within the company and they should give you some time. So as a podcast host, you can really understand a little bit about what goes on. That's not what I got from Tim. When Tim sat down across from us and I started taking notes, the smoke started pouring out of my keyboard. I could not type fast enough because what I learned about Tim is that he has a dedication and a passion for this job. This is not a surface level director of safety here. This is a guy that is looking into every single aspect of his job all the time to try to constantly get better. And you'll hear him say that towards the end of the interview. So make sure to pay attention. I know drivers, especially here at Bulk and Spur, are dedicated to safety. How do I know that? Well, quite a few episodes we've talked about it. We've asked you guys. You guys have told us. I haven't even had to bring it up, and I've had drivers bring it up to me. The safety is the most important aspect of the job that we're doing here, whether it be not getting covered in flour or plastic pellets, not getting, making sure that all of your trailer's working correctly, but the safety on the road as well. The driving part of this job is obviously a gigantic part of it. And today's conversation with Tim Hamilton really puts a point on it, man. I thought this was one of the best interviews we've had so far because there's so much substance. So as you're listening to it today, really try to think about the takeaways, okay? Because there is going to be a quiz up on the website, and if you want to take it, you're going to need to be paying attention to this little conversation that I have with Bulk and Spur's Director of Safety, Tim Hamilton. Let's get into it. Welcome back into Always Pneumatic, Never Static. I'm very excited about this next interview now. As we've been setting this thing up over the last week, my guest today was a little bit worried that maybe we weren't going to be super exciting and entertaining with this one, but I know because I've been making podcasts for truck drivers for going on 4 years right now, and I happen to know that this is one of drivers' favorite people to hear from because they take his job very seriously, just like he does. So please welcome our Director of Safety for Bulk and Spur, Tim Hamilton, to the show. Tim, I've been waiting for this one for a long time, man. I love it when we get a safety director on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, glad to be here.
Lots of experience from you, Tim, in the industry. And that was one reason that I've been kind of excited about this one. We got to sit down and talk for a significant amount of time when I was out in Columbus there, just getting to know everybody. And I wish you could see the stream of consciousness notes that I have from our conversation, Tim, because you've been in the industry a long time and you've got experience with just about everything besides turning a wrench. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Been in almost 30 years now. Been in operations. I've done payroll, counting, just a little bit about everything. Like I said, the only thing I haven't done is turn a wrench and hope never to, because I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, I totally understand. I have more of a tendency to break things that I'm wrenching on than I do to fix them, Tim. So I totally understand that. What kind of roles did you have early on in your career? What kind of broke you into the trucking industry?
Well, like I said, it started out with a small family operation, and we were running pneumatics. Grew the company a little bit. Like I said, handled all the operation, all the safety, all the accounting, payroll. So it was one man band, about 35 drivers.
Wow.
So and it was like it was starting out in the industry like that, and didn't have any real guidance from anybody. Had to learn a lot on my own, and had some hard lessons from DOT.
Any of those you want to tell us about?
No, no, not really. But
Hard
yeah,
lessons indeed. Then.
yeah. I mean, there was times where during an audit they were saying this is like taking candy from a child.
Oh, how rude.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're starting out, you make mistakes, but you learn from them. So it just makes you better.
Absolutely. What were some of the major differences in the industry back then? You know, I know that things have changed quite a bit, and they change every day. It seems now, but back then, what kind of major differences do you see between where we are here in 2026 and when you got your start, Tim?
Well, definitely regulations get tighter. I think the trucking industry is the most heavily overregulated industry. I mean, you think about uh, insurance and banking and everything. Trucking ranks right up there with all of that. Uh, so things were like Brian was talking about when his dad started. Things were a lot simpler back then. It seemed like we just went about doing our job. People left us alone, got things done, and you know, more and more regulations over the years came about, and uh, that's where we're sitting today. And I don't see that ending anytime soon.
Yeah, that tiger ain't gonna change its stripes,
No,
Tim. That's for
no.
sure. Do you think that it would even be possible in today's environment for you to do that one man band thing with 35 drivers you were doing back when you got your start, or is there just too much red tape and you need a bigger team of people to put that in motion these days?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, there's just so much to do. Not just in safety, but even from an operational standpoint. Uh, this industry's just changed so much over the years. And I know, you've had conversation with a lot of our old school drivers that have been with the company, 30, 40 years. And that was one of the things they pointed out, how things were back then compared to now. And it's sort of hard to, newer guys that come into this industry, it's hard for them to relate how things were back then compared to the way things are now. And it was sort of the same way, when I started, I had old school drivers, 30 years ago, they were considered old school drivers. I mean, they were driving back in the 50s and 60s, and some of the things they were telling me about, it was just hard for me to believe that the industry was like that back then. And so it's an evolutionary thing in this business and every business. And you know when you're talking to somebody 30 years from now, it's going to be different than what it is today.
Yep, absolutely. I always find it interesting, Tim, that you don't have to go back as far as you think in the history of the transportation industry to really see what the Wild West era of trucking was. It's not as far back. You know, you think of the Wild West, you think of the 1800s in the United States, but I think of the Wild West in trucking, that kind of 50s to 70s, running paper logs. Guys are running as hard as they can, as many miles with very little regulation. It's not as far back in our history as what you might think it is.
No, and I can tell you one thing that, when I started in it, this industry was very well respected by the public. Uh, I can remember drivers telling me, in fact, from my past experience, when I drove a little bit back in the late 80s, uh, people were amazed. You would park somewhere and people were like, "Wow, you drive that big truck," and they were amazed by the job that you did, and somehow over last decades or so, they've really shined a negative light on the trucking industry. The media has. So it's changed. So by doing that, we've had to change our strategy of how we do things and how we perceive ourselves to the public.
And what do you think that just your general driver, if you were to just randomly sample a driver out of the 3 million or so that we've got, what can that driver do to help clean up that reputation a bit? I don't really feel like it's a driver's fault that that reputation went to where it was. Like you said, it's about representation in various media and things like that. But as a safety director, how do you help your drivers kind of clean up that reputation or keep a high reputation like Bulk has?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is to remain professional. Uh, we are in a profession. We have professional drivers. I mean, we're driving 50, 60 hours a week, where your average motorist commutes 30 minutes a day.
Right.
So sometimes the little four-wheelers think they're the professional drivers out there, and they've watched the NASCAR races, and that's the way they're going to drive. So we have to remain professional and realize that we have more experience than the motorist, and not to react negative when they do something negative towards us.
I think about that, the thing that you said, the training part of it, like it's nothing. It kind of feels like you could pull your driver's license out of a Cracker Jack box, to be honest. We've all seen the tests. There's some things that they'll test you on, but you're not getting a tenth of the training that these professional drivers are getting. And not only that, but they're trained so well to haul such massive quantities, up to 80,000 pounds. And I just don't think your standard average four-wheeler understands what that means at all, Tim. But speak to that from your perspective.
No, they really don't. In fact, years ago, we had a no zone trailer, and we partnered with Ohio Highway Patrol, and
Mhm.
we would take our trailer to up to the truck stop or turnpike up at the rest areas up there, and they would have like a trucking day, and they would have all kinds of big equipment out there, from fire trucks to construction equipment and trucking companies. And the one thing that always amazed me was we would set our truck up, and we would have a patrol car to the right side of the trailer, and the people, they would climb in the truck, sit in the seat, and I would ask them, look out the right side, and what do you see? And they'd look out the mirror, don't see anything. Lean forward a little bit and look out the mirror. Oh, there's a car there. Right. That is what we don't see when you are driving next to us on the right side.
Yep.
So, there's a lot of slogans out there, don't hang around trucks, and it's really the truth. It's motorists need to give room to us truckers.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that this job has done. If nothing else, Tim, I can tell you that this job has made a very respectful, very careful, and very safe driver out of me whenever I'm around trucks. I've learned to give them so much more space. I've learned not to hang out, especially in the hip pocket. That's the worst place to be, right? But I don't, if I'm going to overtake a truck in on a freeway, I want to get past it. I want to get out 5 or 6 car lengths in front of it, get back over to give that guy just all the room and all the respect. I'm flicking on my lights and letting them know they can come in, giving them plenty of room. I obviously have a special respect for it because of what I do. But those types of events that you're talking about there really do open people's eyes to how much different what truck drivers are dealing with out there on the road really is. And I think it's awesome. I hope that, I almost feel like it should be a mandatory part of getting your driver's license. You have to get up into a truck and just see what these drivers see, so you can understand a little better how to operate around them.
Yeah, it all falls back to defensive driving for every person. Yesterday, we had our meet and greet, which we can go in later about that. But when I was talking to the drivers, we were talking about motorcycles and some defensive driving techniques, and it was sort of funny that we all three of us agreed that it should be mandatory that everybody rides a motorcycle before they get a regular driver's license, so that because when you're on a motorcycle, that will teach you very much defensive driving, because you're just a tiny little spot on the road when you're on that motorcycle, and your awareness really needs to improve. And so yeah, it was just sort of funny that all three of us at the same time were like, I think everybody should have to ride a motorcycle first before they get a license.
Yeah, give you a real special respect for how vulnerable you really are out there on the road, too, because with that motorcycle, you don't have a metal cage surrounding you. And I think you start to understand a little bit more like, hey, we're one bad decision away, one just bit of complacency away from a really bad accident, maybe somebody not going home. And that's when it really kind of becomes real, right?
Right. And a good slogan to always use is expect the unexpected.
There you go.
When you're driving, you see that car coming up to an intersection and they have a stop sign there. You have to be prepared that what if they don't stop? You always have to have that in the back of your mind. So, defensive driving is one of the most important things that we need to do, in trucking, and, when we're behind our personal automobiles.
Well said there, Tim. Now, I've talked to a lot of drivers from Bulk and Spur just in the short time that this podcast has been running, and one thing that I can tell is that they do take their safety very seriously. And I wonder, from your perspective, some drivers, they hear director of safety and they have kind of a mindset already. Maybe they've come from a different company where that guy was not the nicest person. Maybe they've come from a company where that guy didn't do a very good job. But from your seat right now, what do you want the drivers of Bulk and Spur to think about when they think Tim Hamilton, Director of Safety?
Well, I can tell you the first thing that comes to my mind, and I appreciate, is the work and dedication that the drivers do. And it starts there. It goes to our terminal managers, and it goes to the ownership of the company. I mean, they really make my job a lot easier because they have bought into being successful by being safe. So like I said, I've been in companies where safety sometimes is a little struggle. Not here at Bulk. I mean, it's we have a good buy-in, and really appreciate what everybody does.
How much has the role changed from straight up safety to a blend of safety and risk management over the years, Tim? You hear a lot of the guys I talk about are risk management guys. What's it like for your role?
That's a great question. So, like I said, let's just say the traditional role of a safety director in the old days was, we enforce the rules, the DOT rules and hours of service, auditing paper logs, we handled the accidents when they happened, uh, made sure the driver's files and we were all compliant with that in case we had a DOT audit. Um, so I mean, the focus back then was really, hey, are we compliant? Are we going to pass a DOT audit?
Hmm.
That was the main focus back then. Now, the new role, and we'll call it the modern, is in the risk management world for safety, is uh, we look, how do we prevent accidents before they happen?
Right.
We have plenty of data that we analyze. We have to manage insurance exposures and the claims that come along with that. What can we do to reduce, lawsuit risk? I mean, everybody sees a billboard out there. Uh,
Have you been in an accident?
at,
Call me.
right, right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's changed, and and now I think safety directors now need to be able to have a little influence with operations, with maintenance, uh,
Hmm.
buying into the program a little bit more. So, now the focus seems to be, we're looking at where is our next big loss coming from and how do we prevent that loss?
Sure, sure. Nuclear verdicts have changed the trucking industry, especially in your realm there, Tim, the safety realm. And I do think it's tragic. I know that there's a lot of predatory stuff that goes on out there, predatory litigation, maybe litigation for the sake of it, rather than actually hoping that somebody is made whole here. And trucking companies have to balance that with risk management, safety. Those two things kind of go hand in hand now, but I've just seen it over the years. It seems like it's become such a bigger part of the job. And there's one thing that I kind of want to break into here off of that, Tim, and it's something that I know that you've got a special eye for, and that's the technology that you're using these days to try to manage those risks, like you talked about, prevent an accident before it happens. And I wonder if you want to talk about some of the tech, maybe the differences in tech from when you started to now, and some of the things that you guys are utilizing to help not only be safe, compliant, but also manage that risk.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely telematics has come a long way over the years. You know, the first thing that started, back in 2018, I believe, was, the mandatory electronic logging devices. Uh, and the growth of technology to where we're sitting now with mitigation systems, critical event recorders, uh, having the started in the automobile industry where they had the little blind spot warnings on, everybody's got the little light that comes up on the mirror that tells you there's a car next to you.
Yep.
The trucking industry has embraced that. uh, so there's and it's going to and the technology every year seems like it improves, especially with the advancement of AI and what's to come with AI. We're going to see a lot of changes, um, and I think that what I've seen is newer drivers that are in this industry seem to embrace it a little bit more than, we'll call, quote unquote, the old school drivers.
Hmm.
And I could say that I'm an old school person. It took me a while, years to embrace the technology, but I think once we're using it, uh, I think a lot of, like I said, a lot of the old school drivers, I think they feel like it's a micromanagement tool
Right.
that's being used against them, and it's sort of like, hey, this is I have years and years and years of professional driver, and this little thing's beeping at me and telling me, I'm doing this wrong, but we all have bad habits. It's not that you're might not be, the worst driver in the world, but these little beeps and stuff just show you, hey, this is what we need to improve on.
Absolutely. I always find it funny with critical event recorders, cameras, whether they be in or outward facing across the industry at whole. And this is not specific to Bulk because I talk to a lot of drivers from a lot of different companies, every different walk of hauling that you can have, whether it be tanker, flatbed, pneumatic, you name it. Something that is very prevalent throughout is those old school drivers, guys that have been around for 20, 30 years saying, I don't need this. You're not going to make me any better by putting all these distracting beeps and everything. And this camera's looking at me and you guys are just wanting to catch me doing something wrong. I got a story that was told to me the other day, Tim, about a guy who late in his career, 30, 40 years behind the wheel, working on retirement, pushed back against this camera that he had in his truck for a long time. All of a sudden he gets a ticket for being on his cell phone. Well, he says, I was not on my cell phone. Well, the safety director at that place looked at the footage. Sure enough, he was picking his nose. And now you had to go to court and say, hey, I was picking my nose and show the video. But that video saved his bacon, saved his score, saved some money off of that would have come off of his paycheck at the end of the month. And I wonder if you've got any, or if you've seen any scenarios like that where a guy was kind of anti this safety technology until it either exonerated him or saved his bacon.
Well, right. I mean, you said it, exoneration. I mean, that's if people will buy into that, this technology will exonerate you from a he said, she said moment. And, I guess we could talk about a case that we had years ago where we had a driver that was making a right-hand turn at a light. He looked both ways, looked to the left, looked to the right, looked back to the left, and was making the turn. And as he was in the intersection, a person in a motorized scooter came into the intersection from the right side and struck the steer tire of our truck and fell to the ground. And naturally, the police arrived, and they cited our driver for basically striking a pedestrian in a crosswalk zone, and a lot of things. And we were sort of a little freaked out about it here, but once we downloaded the video and analyzed it, we looked at our driver did everything right. He was legally in the crosswalk during the right-hand turn, and the person in the motorized chair struck the side of our truck.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changed the whole narrative of what actually happened. And this driver will swear up and down to everybody he talks to. Every time we talk, he says that old camera saved my job.
Right.
So it did, and it saved us, from a potential disastrous lawsuit because of that. So, it's really a great tool. And again, we use the word exoneration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We don't think about it from this side of the coin very often, but if you put yourself in that police officer's shoes, whether he was a good cop, bad cop, indifferent, you show up to this scene not having seen what's going on, and you get two different stories, one from the driver of the truck, one from the guy who just got what he says is hit by the truck. I feel like any one of us is going to sort of look at the person in the motorized scooter on the ground and think that they're probably the ones that were victimized here in some way, shape, or form. And the driver doesn't stand a chance in being able to talk his way out of that. But all this footage, all this proof, this is in and of itself exoneration. And I love hearing a story like that because, listen, you don't want anybody to be out there in traffic getting hurt. It doesn't matter whether you're a pedestrian, a four-wheeler, on a motorcycle, or our drivers. We want everybody to be home safe. But without these critical event recorders, yeah, does he possibly lose his job after that incident?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, of course, you got to look at, down the road, if you seriously injure somebody like that, could there be criminal charges even?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
that's like I said, I know, a lot of people, they don't embrace the technology, but it's really there to help all of us.
Do you have kind of a canned response that you give to drivers that feel like it's intrusive or push back on it a little bit, Tim? Something that you tell them that really has won people over before, other than just using the term exoneration? Or do you just show them these stories and say, hey, look, I can show you this, the proof's in the pudding?
Uh, All of that, all the above. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done all of that. Talking to guys, sometimes exoneration, clicks a light bulb on them, and they realize, some of them, you might have to push a little further. Say, hey, let's take a look at this, and then when they see it, they have a different perspective of it. So, it's like I said, we have great buy-in at Bulk and
Mhm.
Spur on this. I think all of our drivers realize the stories, from in the trucking industry, of things that have happened not so positive for drivers, that this technology is actually helping them with their career, saving their job, saving lives. So, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think everybody would agree if I were to again sample random drivers and say if I could make you X amount more safe, would you consider that making you a better driver? I think every one of them would say yes, because again, we've talked to them. We hear how seriously they take safety on this podcast. And I just think it's cool to kind of develop that culture of safety and have people buy into it because we're not, as we said off the top, we're not very far away from when safety wasn't the culture in trucking, okay? You don't have to go back that far. 20, 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't like it is today. And I think that distinction is important. There was something here, Tim, that we talked about way back when I was there in Columbus meeting you that was really interesting to me, and it has to do with drivers and getting their med cards. Um, can you talk a little bit about the inconsistencies you've seen across the years in the way that drivers get their med cards? There were some things that you talked about with sleep study that I thought was really interesting. Just talk to me a little bit about med cards and the industry oversight there.
Yeah. So, one thing that we like to do is when we bring a driver in, we want to make sure that that driver in that location is getting a fair diagnosis of their medical condition to receive a medical card.
Mhm.
So, at each one of our facilities, we have a vetted locations where a DOT doctor performs the DOT physical, and you know we, we have where some drivers have had, the doctors have found some issues and maybe only issued them a 3-month card, and they uh, got that corrected and then was able to achieve a 1-year card. Other people that come in, that's been, say they've been driving for 10 years, they go to one of our vetted facilities, and they realize that they need to have a sleep apnea uh, test done.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, they find out they have sleep apnea. And we've had drivers that have been through the program like that. They got on a CPAP, and they have expressed to us that their lifestyle has improved a lot from that.
Mhm.
So, you know, they may have gone another 10 years and not really realizing that they had obstructive sleep disorder. And, that will, the studies will show that will harm your lifestyle, over the years. So, it's nice when we can help people out like that, to get on a healthy path.
And what was you mentioned vetted a few times there, Tim. I wonder, can you talk to me about what you told me about the vetting these doctors and why you were vetting them and maybe trouble that you've had in the past if drivers are going to see somebody that is not vetted. Is that something we can get into today?
Yeah, I mean, my experience over the years, I have seen some drivers receive come in. They would have a 2-year medical card, and maybe it was issued by a chiropractor.
Hmm.
And
That
yeah,
doesn't seem like the guy that's qualified to make that distinction, Tim.
well, when FMCSA went to the medical certification process like that, my understanding was that they were sort of concerned that there was not going to be a large participation of medical doctors, physician assistants that were going to sign up for it, because there was a minimal fee that they have to pay like every 5 years, fill out some paperwork. And so they opened it up to the chiropractic industry to perform medical exams.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, I'm not a doctor, but I don't believe most chiropractors went to medical school to learn heart health and brain health, and they're more bone crackers, I guess. So uh, we would have drivers that would have a 2-year card, and from a chiropractor. They would go to one of our vetted facilities to do a DOT physical before they start with us, and our doctor would find that they might have high blood pressure, a little hypertension, something that needed to be addressed to make them healthier. So.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, we're not the only company that does this. There's a lot of trucking companies will require certain qualifications on DOT physicals. The studies have shown that healthier drivers reduce insurance, health insurance costs, premiums. So it's like I said, that's bottom line. That's what we want. We want the healthiest, safest drivers that we can find.
Absolutely. And keep them going to those doctors that you can trust is one way to keep that that flow of good, healthy drivers coming in. And I love to hear that you guys are paying attention to it, Tim, because we talked about predatory lawsuits. There's predatory towing in this industry. There's pretty much somebody that's trying to get over on somebody else in almost every aspect of the trucking industry. And even though you wouldn't want to see it permeate the medical side of things, it's sort of permeated the medical side of things a little bit, and you guys are just covering your bases to make sure that you get the best possible guys you can get in there, and I think you're doing a good job of it. It seems, based on our conversations, that you're pretty happy with the way things are going in that realm right now.
Well, right. If a driver had a medical problem and a company hired that driver, and that driver had a medical issue, scope of employment, and something happened, no one's going to sue the doctor that issued the medical card.
Yep. Right. That guy gets out of it scot-free, right?
Exactly. So, we want to, go beyond compliance to say, and we want to make sure that, like I said, we're protecting the company, and we're protecting the driver, we're protecting the general public out there, make sure that we have safe, healthy drivers.
And it comes through in every conversation I have with drivers. Again, it comes through. And I think that goes back to sort of a culture of safety. I mentioned that earlier, and you mentioned something earlier that is right down the middle with that, Tim, and that's the meet and greets. I think this is so cool. Something that, how long have you been holding meet and greets for?
Well, I'll tell you how it sort of evolved. Before COVID started, we used to do traditional orientation like every company does. Before you hire a driver, you bring them into the office and do your 1-day, 2-day, 3-day orientation, whatever that might be. And you throw a lot of information to a driver, and you're sort of expecting them to retain all of that. And they haven't even set foot in your equipment yet. They haven't even turned the
Right.
key. And So when COVID hit and we couldn't bring new drivers into the office for orientation, we started doing a lot of our stuff online, uh, which we that worked well. The process was smooth on that. But we started to see, the one thing we liked about having the orientation in person was they could come in and meet everybody. They could meet Brian and Andrea and Brad, payroll, operations, and got a sense of that with them. But when we had to go online, we sort of lost some of that connection with the drivers,
Sure.
and there was some concern of, well, maybe we might be seeing a little higher turnover than we were in the past. And I made a suggestion to Andrea, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I said, "Well, why don't we still do the online process of orientation? The paperwork and all that, and let's get them started with a trainer." And possibly 1 week, 2 weeks, that they're into their training, or perhaps when they finally just start out on their own, we bring them in to the office here, a small little group. And like I said, I call it a meet and greet. And we go over what they have experienced so far in those 2, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. Uh, now you've started the job. He said before you go to a typical old fashioned orientation and they throw the stuff at you and hand you the key and you're on your own and you have all kinds of questions and, it's hard to get answered. So now we have a program to where, after a couple of weeks, we bring the people in and they've experienced the job a little bit, and now they seem to have, more questions about the company, about what we're doing. What I love about this podcast is that is part of the meet and greet. Episode 1, where you talk, about how the company started and stuff.
Hmm.
I have them listen to that, and uh, so it's definitely over. I think we've been doing it now for a little over 2 years, and we've definitely seen, it's helped with retention.
I bet. Coming in with wet feet and being able to ask these questions from a standpoint of experience rather than trying to dream up what questions you're going to have after you get the experience. That whole thing just makes sense to me. It feels like you get a lot more substance after being out there and experiencing it for a couple weeks, Tim.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, it has helped. We see in the numbers, so we're always glad to do anything we can to improve the driver experience.
Well, I can tell you as a broadcaster like myself, a podcast host, it's very flattering to hear that you, the director of safety for such a safe company that really has a culture of safety, wants to turn people to our podcast to listen to and kind of help out with the meet and greets. Tim, I will tell you this right now, my friend. I am a tool in your toolkit, and you deploy me as you need to, because I think that's one thing that this podcast can be very effective in, and that is just kind of moving this culture of safety forward and letting everybody know that it's a really big part of the job, and you got to know that at the outset. You can't figure that out later on, right?
Right, right. And the thing I like, about the podcast, that where we can outreach, to more drivers, is, hey, we're a great company, we're a safe company, and you need to come to work here at Bulk and Spur.
Yeah. And the drivers are saying it, man. They don't pull any punches when they come talk to me, and I love that. There's one kind of fun one that I want to ask you here. We talked a little bit when we were in Columbus about autonomous driving, and sort of kind of had some laughs back and forth about that. A very specific question for you in your position. What part of trucking do you think never goes away, Tim, regardless of the technological improvements and advancements? What part of trucking is going to stay the same forever?
Well, in any type of a specialized carrier, like what we do, because it's hands-on, there are certain aspects of the trucking industry, and they're doing it now where with the autonomous truck, where they're driving the computer's driving the truck from point A to point B. Uh, that would be fine. We could have somebody a computer drive our truck from point A to point B, but who's going to unload the trailer?
Amen.
Who's going to be experienced to do that? Who's going to get it unloaded safely? Who's going to get it unloaded properly? So that part of that autonomous world will probably not happen. I mean, we can say the same thing with fuel companies, uh, hazardous material hauling. I don't think we really want to have computers, the autonomous side, delivering our fuel. Again, how are they going to, how's the computer going to put the fuel from the tanker into the well? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And we
and
have a little bit of experience with that today, Tim. We couldn't get the microphones to work correctly when we hopped into this recording. So if they can't handle that, are they really going to be able to handle hazardous materials, putting the wrong product into the wrong container, something like that costs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over time. And if those computers are making those mistakes, man, shut them down and put a warm body back there behind it. That's what I say.
right, right. And, like I said, I think autonomous, whether it's in automobile or trucking, is so far down the road. I mean, there's just so many bugs that need to be worked out that uh, we probably won't be talking about it on one of our podcasts. It'll be
Amen to
that
that.
far down the road.
Well, if we are talking about it on a podcast, you're probably listening to a recording of me at that point in time because I've said so many words. I'm sure there's a computer version of me out there somewhere that's learning, but like you said, way down the road and not something that we want to concern ourselves with right now. Tim, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. Lots of great information here. You can tell that you're really dedicated to the job, the safety aspect, the risk management aspect, the meet and greets, getting some face-to-face interaction with the drivers and really trying to help them solve the problems that they're seeing out there on the road. It really does speak to just a overall culture of safety at Bulk and Spur, and I've always been very impressed by it since the day that I met you guys. It permeates every aspect of the business from my fly-on-the-wall perspective. I want to give you a chance to talk about anything that we might have left on the table here. It's kind of been whiz-bang here. I've been really throwing them at you quick, but I know you brought a lot of notes, Tim, and while we still have a little bit of time at the end of the interview here, is there anything that you want to cover that I didn't get to?
Well, Marcus, I said, the one thing that a slogan, we all have slogans we have in life and we might see, but the one message that I believe in, and I believe everybody should be to believe in, is complacency is the enemy of safety.
That's a good one.
When
That's a
we
really good one.
I've lived by that, all through my career. And if you can get people to buy in that when we just, we always have to think, there's slogans out there, ABC, always be careful. But I think it's when we're doing a job, we always have to think about doing it safely,
Absolutely.
whatever we're doing. So if when we lose focus of that, that's when bad things can happen.
And you kind of have to train those habits very, I guess I would say intently. You have to have intent when it comes to training those habits to keep yourself from being complacent, because when you think that you're really good at a job, when you've been doing it for 30 years and it seems like old hat to you, that's when complacency can come in and do the most damage, isn't it, Tim?
Oh yeah, I mean, Marcus, I learn every day, and I never stop learning. About this industry. I attend locally here Ohio Trucking Association meetings. Uh, we have our insurance captive group. We have risk management workshops that I go to. Uh, safety councils here at our Union County. So the fact that I'm constantly networking with different safety people and sharing different ideas. You learn more.
Do you feel like the safety and risk management side of things has become more collaborative over the recent years, Tim? Has it always been something where you guys are coming together and collaborating in these areas, or is this something that's more of a new thing where you guys think, hey, we can share ideas and still compete in this market?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think let's say 30 years ago, we had competitors were our other trucking people, but now I think all the trucking people, the industry has gotten together, and most of our competition is not exposing ourselves to one of those big lawsuits.
Yep.
And whatever, so it's a joint effort with everybody. What can we do to make ourselves safer so that we don't have that next nuclear verdict.
100%. Tim Hamilton, Director of Safety for Bulk and Spur. Final thoughts from you today, Tim, before we let you get back to it. This has been a great interview. I know I'm going to hear from drivers about this one. They're going to have enjoyed it and learned something for sure. What can you leave us with today before I let you get back to your very busy job?
Yeah, well, like what I started with, I appreciate the dedication and the hard work that our drivers put in. It makes my job easier. Our terminal management team, what they do to I'm just sort of like the orchestra director of the band. They really do the groundwork. I say, hey, this is what we need to do. They get it done. So and thank to the DeWolf family, awesome family to work for. I told Brian when I got hired in 10 years ago, I said, unfortunately, I can only give you 20 years and then I'm out of here. I'll be retiring then. But, I look back and I've told a lot of people this, this is a company I wish I would have been at, started 25 years ago. Really, really great company, and really want more and more people here and
Absolutely.
enjoy what we have here.
Boy, bang that drum, Tim. They don't understand how good it is out there if they're not working for you guys yet. So I greatly appreciate the time here today and also the dedication to safety that you bring. I have a feeling this won't be the last time we talk to you here on this podcast, Tim. If you'll come back again, I want you, because like I said, I feel like there's so much depth to talking to somebody that does the job that you do. And I could even argue that we've only just scratched the surface here today, but great stuff. And please come back and join us again here on Always Pneumatic, Never Static whenever you feel the urge, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Marcus.
Man, hats off to Tim Hamilton, our Director of Safety here at Bulk and Spur. I will tell you one thing right now. I would actually take my hat off if I wasn't wearing headphones and had a crop circle of a bald spot on the back of my head that I don't want to show anybody. But hats off. What a great interview there. So much substance, as I said off the top. You can really sink your teeth into the things that Tim was talking about, and also you can hear the passion and the dedication for the job and the company come through. I told you, safety directors are some of my favorite people to have on the podcast. There's a lot, and I mentioned it towards the end of that interview. We probably only scratched the surface. Tim told me after we got off the mic, he said, I've got pages and pages of notes that we didn't even get to. There you go. There's another bit of dedication from Tim. His job is not to come on and do a podcast with me, but he treated it like his job, and he had some awesome stuff to bring us there, and we'll get even more out of him the next time that we have him on the show. Can't wait for that. We talked about off the air, possibly bringing in a driver to join Tim next time. I love it. look, safety is the name of the game here, and we will dedicate as much time on this podcast to it as need be, and I'm not the arbiter of that. If I am told by Brian or Brad or Andrea or Tim or anybody else for that matter, any of the terminal managers come to me and say, hey, let's talk about this thing that has to do with safety, it goes right to the top of my priority list, and my first order of business is to get in touch with Brad and Andrea and Brian and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Can we turn it into an episode? Because I know how important safety is. I know it not only in the trucking industry, I can tell by the conversations we've had here on this podcast what safety really means to all of you at Bulk and Spur. And I love it. And, sometimes conversations like this don't come with a lot of fireworks. There's not a lot of punchlines. There's no big crazy twists that you're waiting for. But if you're paying attention to this conversation, so much there, so much. What Tim laid out today is something every driver, no matter where you're at in your career, has to understand. The job has changed from where it was in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s. Even in the early 2000s. Safety isn't just about following the rules anymore. It's about thinking ahead. It's about seeing the risk before it shows up and doing everything you can to mitigate said risk. And yeah, sometimes that means embracing things like new technology that maybe we're not the most comfortable with, the systems, the oversight that comes in. But hey, you heard Tim say it off the top of that interview. You're working in one of the most, arguably one of the most over-regulated industries that we have in our United States economy. There's an argument to be made that there's a reason for that, and a very good one. There's an argument to be made that there's so much red tape that we can't find our way out of the maze, and that's okay too. But if there's one thing that came through loud and clear today, it's this. These tools aren't here to catch you. They're not here to micromanage you. These tools, these tech, the safety, the compliance stuff that we do, the risk mitigation, all of it is here to protect you from bad situations, bad assumptions, and sometimes from losing everything over something that wasn't even your fault. I thought that story that Tim told was very poignant. You got a motorized scooter who crashes into the side of a truck as the truck is operating illegally within the lane of traffic, and a cop shows up and cites the truck driver. Why? Well, because it's really hard to say that a motorized scooter would have been at fault in an accident with a semi-truck. But guess what? That's why we have the tech. Exoneration is the name of the game. And don't you forget it neither, Bubba. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Getting the job done, getting it done the right way, and making sure everybody, drivers, families, everyone out there on the road gets home. Tim did such a great job today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time that Tim gave us. That's a big job, okay? The director of safety, no small nut to crack. And the fact that we got 45 plus minutes out of Tim today of his very valuable time should mean something to you. He's dedicated to it. He knows that you guys are listening to this podcast, and you just got to hear it right from his mouth like you do at the meet and greets. Very, very great episode today. Can't thank Tim enough. And for everybody listening, we'll catch you next time on Always Pneumatic, Never Static. Next week, Wednesday, 5 a.m. local time. Be safe out there, drivers. That's the name of the game.
And that's all she blows for today's episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static, your number one and probably only pneumatic trucking podcast, brought to you by Bulk Transit. Thanks for rolling with us today. Till next time, stay safe, keep those lines clear, and keep it pumping.